What happens when Hollywood's brightest stars trade fame for fog? The golden age may have glittered with tuxedos and champagne, but behind that shine was smoke. Literal smoke. Some of the biggest icons of classic cinema found escape not in scripts or applause, but in the haze that blurred their reality. From rebel actors to glamorous legends, their stories reveal a secret side of old Hollywood most audiences never saw. Let's rewind and expose the 15 worst stoners of classic Hollywood cinema. Number 15. Mickey Rooney. He was the boy who had it all: money, fame, and a studio contract before he was even old enough to drive. Mickey Rooney grew up inside the Dream Factory, but the factory didn't teach him how to handle pressure. By his teenage years, he was already exploring Hollywood's darker corners. He lived fast, laughed loud, and surrounded himself with people who loved late-night parties more than morning call times. As his fame exploded in the Andy Hardy series, the studio presented him as the wholesome American kid. Off-camera, Mickey was anything but. He experimented with habits that dulled the noise of constant fame. When most teenagers were worrying about homework, Rooney was learning how to hide exhaustion behind a grin. His fast-lane lifestyle followed him through adulthood, leaving behind broken marriages, financial trouble, and a long trail of what-ifs. Rooney later admitted that Hollywood had eaten him alive. It was a chilling confession from a man who'd once been the most bankable star in America. His career had moments of brilliance, but his restless nature and party-driven years never truly left him. Mickey Rooney's story proves that growing up under the studio lights often meant burning out long before the curtain fell. Number 14. Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth was the dream every studio sold, elegance wrapped in fire. On screen, she was the definition of control. Off screen, her world was anything but. The pressure to maintain her beauty, figure, and fame pushed her toward constant exhaustion. She turned to quiet escapes to calm her racing thoughts, often joining the after-hours gatherings that Hollywood's elite never spoke of in public. Behind her dazzling performances in Gilda and The Lady from Shanghai was a woman struggling with loneliness. Friends said Rita found more comfort in laughter and smoke-filled conversations than in stardom's spotlight. Her private parties became her sanctuary, a small space where she could forget that every headline demanded perfection. The toll came slowly, but surely. By the late 1950s, her sparkle dimmed. The exhaustion, the expectations, and the constant fight to appear flawless drained her spirit. Still, she never complained publicly. She smiled through it all, embodying the very illusion that made old Hollywood so intoxicating. Rita Hayworth's story reminds us that the screen goddess wasn't just battling studios, she was battling herself. The world adored her for her beauty, but very few saw the tired soul behind that flawless frame, seeking brief peace in smoky rooms and fleeting laughter. Number 13. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow was Hollywood's original platinum sensation, the first blonde bombshell before the title became cliché. She was the face of glamour and mischief, the woman who could command a room with one look. But the studio-controlled system that built her image also trapped her inside it. Behind closed doors, Harlow's life was defined by long hours, relentless schedules, and pressure from men who viewed her as a product rather than a person. Parties became her escape, a rare chance to feel free. In the lush living rooms of Beverly Hills, clouds of laughter and smoke hung heavy in the air, and Jean was often at the center of it all. Insiders whispered about her experimenting with the habits common among Hollywood's high society. For Jean, these evenings weren't about rebellion. They were about breathing again in a world that suffocated her. Sadly, her freedom was short-lived. Her sudden death at just 26 left fans devastated and rumors swirling. Jean Harlow's brief life remains one of Hollywood's saddest stories, a star who shined too bright, too soon. Her face became immortal on silver screens, but her heart was worn down by the cost of fame and the quiet escapes she took to survive it. Number 12. Paul Newman. Paul Newman wasn't your typical Hollywood bad boy. He was smooth, intelligent, and every bit the gentleman. But even the most polished icons had their moments of rebellion. During Hollywood's mid-century heyday, Newman was known to unwind in unconventional ways with friends between shoots. His charisma drew people in, and his confidence kept him grounded. Yet, he never denied that he occasionally sought calm away from the chaos of fame. Friends recalled quiet moments on set when the world's most handsome man would slip away to find peace in his own company. He wasn't reckless, just restless. What set Newman apart was balance. He had the discipline that others lacked. While many stars drowned under fame's weight, Newman kept swimming. He funneled his energy into acting, racing, and philanthropy, making sure his indulgences never took center stage. His openness about youthful experimentation later in life shocked fans who thought he was untouchable, but it also made him more human. Paul Newman's honesty proved that imperfection doesn't erase greatness, it defines it. He may not have lived as wildly as some of his peers, but even Hollywood's golden gentleman had his foggy moments. And maybe that's why people loved him even more. Number 11. Spencer Tracy. Few actors carried authority like Spencer Tracy. With his quiet intensity and commanding presence, he could make any line feel like truth. But his personal life was a different story, one filled with inner conflict, heavy expectations, and the endless demands of being Hollywood's dependable leading man. Tracy's secret was his constant struggle to keep control. He was known for his professionalism on set, yet privately, he leaned on quiet vices to manage exhaustion and self-doubt. Those who worked closely with him saw a man torn between faith, fame, and fatigue. He didn't rebel openly like others, but his internal storms were just as destructive. Longtime partner Katharine Hepburn once said Tracy was both the strongest and weakest man she'd ever known. That paradox defined him. His private escapes weren't wild public spectacles. They were quiet acts of survival. Each performance on screen was a triumph over his personal chaos. By the time he filmed Guess Who's Coming to Dinner in the late 1960s, Tracy's health was failing. He poured the last of his strength into the role, leaving behind a legacy of brilliance that outshined his troubles. Spencer Tracy remains a reminder that even Hollywood's greatest icons were, in the end, only human fighting battles no camera could capture. Number 10. Bela Lugosi. When Bela Lugosi first appeared as Count Dracula in 1931, audiences were hypnotized. His accent, his stare, and his eerie charm made him unforgettable. But off-screen, Lugosi's life was a very different kind of horror story, one that played out in private shadows far darker than anything Universal ever filmed. The success of Dracula typecast him for life. Studios saw him only as the villain, the foreign menace. Work became scarce, and rejection hit hard. As the roles disappeared, Lugosi turned to whatever helped him keep moving. The glamour faded, the offers dried up, and the quiet dependence he developed turned into a full-blown struggle. By the 1950s, the once proud star was appearing in low-budget pictures, just to stay afloat. But then, something extraordinary happened. Lugosi checked himself into rehabilitation. At a time when Hollywood buried its secrets, he stepped into the light and admitted he needed help. That decision, shocking for its honesty, made him one of the first celebrities to publicly face his personal battles instead of hiding them. Though his later years were difficult, Lugosi's courage in confronting his demons gave him a dignity few realized he had. He may have been haunted by his own creations, but he faced the darkness with a rare kind of strength. In the end, the man behind the cape was far braver than the monster he played. Number 9. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner was the definition of old Hollywood magnetism, beautiful, fiery, and unfiltered. She lived life as if it were a movie she directed herself, refusing to follow anyone's script. Her career soared with films like The Killers and Mogambo, but fame came with a cost. Behind the glamorous image was a woman constantly pushing against Hollywood's rules. Ava was known to speak her mind, smoke when she pleased, and laugh louder than any man in the room. Her friends called her wild, but Ava preferred the term free. She didn't hide her indulgences, she simply didn't care who approved. The late-night parties, the laughter, and the haze around her Beverly Hills home were all part of her rebellion against a system that tried to control every inch of her life. She once said, "I never said I was an angel." And she meant it. Her openness shocked the studios, but fans adored her for it. Gardner's strength wasn't in perfection, it was in her defiance. Though she faced heartbreak and career setbacks, she remained unapologetically herself. Ava Gardner proved that authenticity could be just as powerful as glamour. In an era built on illusions, She stood out as someone who refused to pretend, even when it cost her everything. Number 8. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift was more than a movie star. He was a symbol of intensity and vulnerability. The actor every director wanted and every fan couldn't forget. But fame didn't come easy for Monty. He was painfully shy, deeply introspective, and often uncomfortable in the spotlight. Everything changed one night in 1956 when he was in a terrible car crash that left his face shattered. The physical pain was immense, but the emotional scars cut even deeper. Once known for his perfect looks and quiet power, Clift struggled with self-image, confidence, and control. To cope, he sought escape in solitude and substances that dulled the edges of his suffering. Friends like Elizabeth Taylor stood by him, trying to pull him back from the brink, but the damage had been done. His performances after the accident, especially in films like The Misfits and Judgment at Nuremberg, carried a haunting depth that came from real pain. Hollywood insiders called him the slowest self-destruction in show business, a phrase as cruel as it was true. Montgomery Clift's story is heartbreaking, not because he failed, but because he kept trying. Every time he stepped in front of the camera, he turned his suffering into art. His quiet struggle made him one of Hollywood's most human legends, beautiful, broken, and unforgettable. Number 7. Peter Lawford. He was charming, connected, and effortlessly cool. Peter Lawford belonged to that rare circle where movie stars, politicians, and power players all collided. As a member of the Rat Pack and brother-in-law to President John F. Kennedy, Lawford seemed untouchable. But behind the polished smile and political connections was a man consumed by the constant buzz of Hollywood's party scene. Lawford's home in Santa Monica became the go-to spot for the elite, a place where the music never stopped, and neither did the indulgence. Everyone wanted to be